Okay, good evening, everybody. It's 7 o'clock. I see just about everybody. I don't see Ms. Hunt. Is she?
Yeah, so I'm probably responsible for that in a couple different ways. We now have a vacancy on the Planning Commission. Ms. Hunt had originally, been appointed to the Planning Commission, but upon the second vacancy on our City Commission, we had an opportunity to look at the vacancies and the applications, and she was a great fit to fill the role for the departing Commissioner Lavasser. And so I do have someone selected that will be announced next week to join the team here for our next meeting next month. So I take responsibility. When I appointed her, I was unaware that Commissioner Lavasser was going to create another vacancy.
Okay, so we don't have to wait for it.
No, we don't have to wait for it, Mary.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for that information. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the time and place for the regular meeting of the Royal Oak Planning Commission, 7 p.m., January 12th. And so I'd like to take a quick roll call and make sure everybody's here. We know Ms. Hunt isn't going to answer. Mayor Fournier.
I'm here, present.
Commissioner Douglas.
Present in Royal Oak.
Ms. Beakey.
Present.
Mr. Klooster.
I am present as well.
Mr. Gantina.
Present.
And I'm here. And Mr. Twing is here, I see. Mr. Liss. We have a couple of petitioners there. And I assume Ms. Schwanger is somewhere lurking behind the camera. All right. So
I am, and I just, for the roll call, you do need this, the voting members did need to say where they're calling in from.
oh, what?
Star was
one of
the
them
only
did.
one who did that.
Yes. So I
Sorry.
guess we'll go back around, except for Commissioner Douglas, I think, who did say she was in Royal Oak. Let's start with the mayor. Are you in Royal Oak?
Yes, I am. Beautiful.
All right, we'll skip Commissioner Douglas and go to Ms. Beakey.
Calling in from Royal Oak.
Mr. Klooster,
Also calling in from Royal Oak.
Mr. Gantina,
And calling in from Royal Oak as well.
and I am also in Royal Oak. Great, thank you. All right, first order of business is the approval of the minutes from the December 8th regular meeting. People had a look at this. Is there comment or a motion? It was a long meeting, if you remember. There was a lot to look at.
I will move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second? Yes, Commissioner Douglas. All right. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote to approve the minutes from December 8th meeting. Mayor Fournier,
Aye.
Commissioner Douglas,
Yes.
Ms. Beakey,
Yes.
Mr. Klooster,
Yes.
Mr. Gantina,
Yes.
and I am a yes. The motion passes. The minutes are approved for December 8th. All right. The next order of business is the public comment on non-agenda items. Ms. Schwanger, do we have any such comments?
We do not have any general public comments. We have one public comment that was called in, and that is for your second public hearing.
All right, we'll look forward to that. All right, new business. The first item under new business is a public hearing on designated RZ 210101. This is 1500 North Stevenson Highway. And Mr. Twing, tell us about this.
Good evening. You do have a staff report as part of the agenda packet. You may recall that the Planning Commission discussed a similar request back in October of this year for a property at 1600 Stevenson Highway. The city did receive a second rezoning request for the property at 1500 Stevenson Highway. And in processing that, it was staff's decision based on comments in the prior action to include the 4 other properties in this segment of Royal Oak along Stevenson, basically the area south of 12 Mile to where it crosses 75. And so we noticed all of those properties for a request to rezone it from neighborhood business to general business. And obviously the planning commission can consider the entire area or a smaller area if you so choose in terms of your recommendation to the city commission. As I indicated, the staff report does address each parcel, and the original request was from the petitioner and property owner at 1500 North Stevenson. And I believe they are on the call tonight. And I think if you're ready for them, or if you don't have any questions for me, that would be fine.
I just want to make sure it's clear for the record here. So we had a petitioner come who owned one of the properties in this area last meeting, or I think it was last meeting, might have been the meeting before, asked to rezone from neighborhood business, which it was before, to general business. And I think that got adopted. And there was a good discussion about the fact this whole area in the master plan is intended in the future to be, I think the phrase is general commercial, but it was intended in the future to be a different use. And now we have another petitioner from the same sections of this commercial area here who is making a similar request. They want to rezone to general business. And if I understand correctly, the department is saying, as long as we're here, why don't we just go ahead and zone this in conformance with the master plan? That's what I understand?
That's correct. The prior petition, though, I believe was at your October meeting. So it was a couple of meetings ago, and the city commission did rezone the property at 1600.
All right. And just so I know, I believe the staff report says that the other properties were notified of this action. So they're aware that this is being considered tonight.
Yes, all the property owners involved in the request were notified, as well as all the properties within 300 feet.
All right. So very good. Any other questions for Mr. Twing from the panel? All right, hearing none, I'm going to ask for the petitioner to come forward, introduce themselves, and tell us about your request.
Good evening. Mike Gordon, MJ Architects. With me is my assistant Evan. George is here, or most all of you seem to be familiar with him, and he's been a owner of this property since 2008. And as we've discussed, the request is to have this property rezoned into what was considered the master plan for the area. The subject parcel is an interesting piece of property because it splits itself between Madison Heights and Royal Oak. The portion that we're talking about tonight is 21,000 square feet in the Royal Oak side. Again, for all the reasons, the current economic climate complicated by the pandemic, there's been a decline in demand, and currently this building is now pretty much empty. As the nation moves toward improving the environment, we think that this rezoning gives us opportunity to market the building to a lot of different businesses that would be a good fit for the area. The subject property is located on Stevenson Highway. As we discussed, it's a major commercial zone. It's easy access to I-75 and the grid of streets. Further, there are no neighborhood residential developments or residential uses in the general vicinity of this property, because one of the options we're looking at is for a medical marijuana facility. However, we all know that that is a complicated process, and there's a lot of hoops that have to be gone through. We think the rezoning, as we've discussed, is appropriate for the area, and it gives him plenty of opportunity if this project does not move forward. That I think it gives him a lot more alternatives as who to market to, and it will increase the tenancy of the building and stabilize the income for the area. And additional users as they were listed in the package, we know what can be done in this area. And again, even if the medical marijuana doesn't move forward, I think it's the right choice because we can package this building to a lot of different end users. And we hope you look favorably upon this. And we'll answer any questions. And if George wants to add anything, feel free.
No, I think you pretty much said it all. I have 37 office spaces there, and prior to COVID, I had 29 filled, and as of right now, I only have 9. And I've lost a lot of people that have decided to work from home. I've also been in business in Royal Oak since 1979, originally starting at 10 Mile and Woodward at the base of the water tower to the zoo when it was 10 Mile Road. And then I've had other buildings in Royal Oak, culminating in this one that I bought in 2008, just prior to the crash. And just was getting through surviving that whole ordeal when COVID came along. So looking to try to rezone it for some other opportunities.
I have a quick question. This is the office building, and I understood that it is also in Madison Heights, or is you're attached to like Modern Skate and Surf or something like that. Is it the same building? Could you just explain for the record?
The warehouse area is in Madison Heights. The office, the 2-story office area is in the city of Royal Oak, and I am the owner of Modern Skate and Surf as well. So that's why I got
But it's only one building.
It's one building, but it's 2 separate properties, and it has, you can completely separate the 2 entrances. The two they're not accessible to each other, in other words.
Okay.
But it happens to be on the same address, which is we use the Royal Oak address because it's the one facing Stevenson, is the Royal Oak property. But the warehouse in the back, which is a completely different use, is in Madison Heights.
There's a common wall on the property line. That's the only part. They're conjoined with the.
All right. Thank you. Are there other questions for the petitioner?
I would suggest that you open the public hearing. I think Carol said there weren't any calls, but I would at least open it and then close it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I should have done that. Let's do that. I'd like to open the meeting to public comment. Carol, just if you state for the record if there are public comments.
There were no public comments called in for this case.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Twain. All right. Any discussion among the panel here, or any other questions for the petitioner or their designer? Well, I'll say, Mr. Klooster, unmute yourself there.
Yeah, I guess my question I think is more for Mr. Twing than the petitioner. And just to clarify, the memo says that it's from the planning division to the planning commission. So this is the planning department initiating this based on our kind of previous conversations and more property owners looking to rezone. So really, would the planning division technically be the petitioner here, and we're talking about all these potential properties?
Well, the petitioner that's in front of you this evening applied for a rezoning.
Okay.
And when the city received that application, we initiated including the rest of the parcels.
Okay.
There is a petitioner for 1500 North Stevenson. Staff, the planning division simply included the remainder of the block.
Okay, and reading through the memo and looking at the actual properties that are there right now, it doesn't appear like we'll be placing any undue burden on any of these properties because their existing use falls within the allowed uses of general business.
That's correct. I believe you would even be improving the status of 1 or 2 of them in terms of the auto repair I don't believe the auto repair is a permitted use in neighborhood business where it would become a use in general business.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Cantina.
Okay, there we go. Sorry. So kind of follow along those same lines with a question to Mr. Twing regarding the other properties. So I see here in the staff report the permitted and special land uses under the general business zoning. And it makes note that the existing sites, if they were to change use to any one of these, would require a site plan review. The question that I have is, under neighborhood business, the permitted and special land uses that exist under there, if an existing business were to be changing their existing use to what's now under a permitted or special land use in a neighborhood zone, would that also require a new site plan review?
If they're changing the use of the property from its current use, yes, it would require potentially site plan review and potentially special land use approval.
Okay, so that's how I understood it. So just to clarify then, to Mr. Klooster's point, we're not necessarily placing any undue burden on existing property owners. Their existing use will remain as long as it's the existing use. At any point they intend to change that, regardless of whether it was general business or neighborhood business, they would still more than likely still require a site plan review.
Yes, potentially.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? For Ms. Spring, Ms. Beaky.
I guess I'll just make a quick comment on, and I appreciate those clarifications. As I read through this, I appreciate staff included these other properties nearby. And as we discussed at quite length in that October meeting, I think this is an appropriate area to shift towards general business, given there's no homes in the nearby area and given the other types of businesses around. So I'm inclined to support this.
Gil? Other comments? Well, I'll make a quick one. I think that this is the right move. We're here. We've got 2 petitioners already asked to be rezoned. I suppose that if one of the properties wanted to go back to neighborhood business, I don't know why they would do that, but if they would, I suppose they could petition us. But this is where our master plan designates this area as, I think it's general commercial, I think is the term. But all of the uses, just for the record, all the uses that are currently there now would be under the general commercial or general business. It so happens, as Mr. Twing pointed out, that one of them under neighborhood business would not be allowed. So we're making that conforming. So I certainly am going to support this. I always had a little bit of a hesitation when this happened before about changing somebody's zoning when they weren't here to speak, but all these property owners were informed, and I don't think they would have any objections, and I think that's why they're not here. So I don't feel uncomfortable about supporting this. Is there a motion? Mr. Gantina.
I will move to approve the rezoning request. And we'll go through, I guess, A through I here. I do believe it's consistent with our master plan. The physical location, I think, lends itself to this general business rezoning. I think we've heard multiple applicants discuss their difficulty in getting a reasonable return. Potential uses allowed, I think, are acceptable. Street system is certainly capable of accommodating it. I believe the public utilities are capable, considering this is not going to be an industrial zoning. I believe there is a demand for general business and certainly for certain uses, as we've seen. And I don't believe this will create an isolated, unplanned spot zoning. Other than that, I don't believe there's any other criteria that we would need to satisfy in order to approve this. So I move to approve the rezoning request as it's stated.
There's a second. Mr. Klooster, seconds. Is there further discussion on this on this item? All right, seeing none, I'm going to call for the vote to approve the request for rezoning from neighborhood business to general business. And I will call for the vote, Mr. Mayor Fournier,
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas,
Yes.
Ms. Beaky,
Yes.
Mr. Klooster,
Yes.
Mr. Guntina,
Yes.
and I am a yes. The item passes. Proposal passes. Congratulations. Good luck to you. And hope we come out of this like you did out of 2008.
Yeah, I
This
appreciate
this will be going to the city commission with a recommendation for approval.
Yes, it's a recommendation. Sorry about that. And you actually, George, you actually skate at the
I
building?
do.
You do?
I teach skating, yeah.
I'll be darned. All
Yeah,
right.
and I teach the younger kids how to teach.
All right.
Awesome.
It's one thing to be good at what you do, but it's another thing to be able to convey to somebody how to do it without them getting hurt, you know?
Okay. Well, my daughter Ariana skates there. You might have run into her.
Oh, yeah, excellent. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get quite a few kids from all over. We actually draw from other states on the weekend. We'll have people from Chicago and New York and Ohio almost every weekend.
Wonderful. Well, good luck to you.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. The next item on the agenda is a special land use and site plan to expand a natural gas facility at near 13 Mile and Greenfield. This is item number SP 21-01-01. Mr. Twing.
This is a special land use request, as you indicated, in that public utility transformer stations, transmission facilities are listed as special land use in neighborhood business. It is an existing facility where the petitioner is proposing to, or has removed much of the existing structures or will be removing them. And the petitioner is proposing to develop and expand the existing natural gas transmission line. They are proposing to include the construction of a new regulation building. It's approximately 2,000 square feet. I believe it's 50 by 40 and a little over 11 feet tall at the midpoint. They're closing all the access driveways from 13 and the side street and all access to the new location would be off of the alley to the south. It is to be screened along 13 Mile and the side street to the west with a decorative masonry wall. There is a detail depicting that in your packet and on the site plan. The wall would also go along a portion of the east portion of the site up to the front line of the existing building to the east on the adjacent parcel. Along the alley on the south side, they are proposing a 6-foot chain link fence with some screening, and there's also a detail of that in your packet. Additionally, there's not a lot of detail on it, and I'll touch on it in the site plan portion. They have included a site to the east that's labeled as TWA area, or which is a temporary work area. And I'll let them explain what their options are or what they're planning to do there on that. Staff will be looking for, as part of the site plan memo, more details on the plan to be submitted there as well. I'll wait for the site plan memo to see where the planning commission goes on the special land use request.
All right. I believe the petitioner is here. I assume Mr. Lawson and Mr. Scott are here for this. Yes? If you will introduce yourself and present your proposed project.
Yes, sir. My name is Joe Lawson, here representing Consumers Energy. Along with me is Doug Scott, who's our consulting engineer from Rowe Professional Services. I think the summary that was provided is pretty spot on. It's a pretty simple project. This was an existing facility that we are expanding and upgrading with the demolition of the existing facility and the construction of a new 50 by 40 regulation building. As also mentioned, this being a corner lot on Elwood and 13 Mile, it's been requested and we've complied with screening on the two sides while closing off all of the access points from 13 Mile and Elwood, while only allowing access from the public alley on the south side. As mentioned, there is a TWA that we're also requesting. And the TWA is kind of mentioned, is a temporary work area. It's a staging area. I mean, when you look at the site plan itself, it's rather congested between the building and all the plumbing that's or piping that's going to be constructed on the site. So the temporary work area is just to the east. There's a not vacant, but an open grass area parking lot. We have been in contact with that property owner, and the property owner is willing to allow us to utilize that space, basically to prefab, if you will, certain sections of pipe or equipment. So we can do it down there, bring it and actually install it on site. There's not enough room on the existing site to manufacture a prefab and install. It's just going to be too busy. We were hoping to use that site, like I said, to the east. That way we can stay off of the main roads. We won't have any access to 13 Mile for the most part. We'll just be basically going back and forth through the public alley. Prefab on one site, install it on the proposed site here on Elwood and 13 Mile. I think that's pretty much in a nutshell. If there's anything I can answer for you, I'd be happy to do so.
Yes, just I've been out to the site. Right now you have your existing two buildings, and then you have asphalt or concrete parking lot, and then there's a grass area. Is that all part of the project, or is the is where the existing two buildings are right now? You're going to tear those down, but this project is more than just that parcel, right?
Right, where I drove by there the other day myself, and I'm trying to remember. There used to be, I believe it was like a tailor or there was a commercial building basically on the Elwood frontage that we purchased and tore down. So there was another building there at one point in time, and the asphalt was the parking lot for that facility. But as part of this overall redevelopment, all of that would come out, the parking lot as well as the existing buildings that are there now.
Okay, so you I mean, you own everything over to Elwood. That's where the wall is.
Correct, yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay, so the temporary work area though, is it where the grass is now, where the corner building was? I'm just.
No, it would be further to the east.
Oh, further to the east. I'm sorry. I got you.
Get this.
I got you. Further to the east, not the west. Okay. That's on the other
Correct.
side of the building. That's your neighbor.
Correct, yeah, yep, on the other side of the building to the east. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
There's a side street there, and I'm pulling a blank on what the name of that side street is. I can
Well, the Elwood is
look real fast.
Elwood is the name of the street to the west.
Yeah, and then the next street to the east, it's on that block.
It's Prairie Avenue, Joe.
Thank you, Doug.
Okay, I understand. I guess I would like to know what exactly, just for the record, what does this site do? I don't know anything about the delivery of natural gas. Tell us what this
Sure.
site does.
Okay, so this particular site it's a city gate, a regulation station. So what it does is it takes high pressure gas off of the transmission mains and reduces it down to a pressure that we can distribute to the homes and businesses in the area. We can also regulate flow to different other stations through this facility as well. That's why all the valving. So basically we balance our load for gas, and then the main function of it, like I said, is to reduce the pressure to a distribution pressure from a transmission.
The feed is under the 13 Mile right away, and then it comes into the property and then goes back out. How does it go?
Correct, yeah, I believe it comes in off of 13 Mile, comes in, loops through the facility, and then back out 13 Mile and off to the customers from there.
Is the proposed use, will it increase the volume, or is it just, you're just updating and improving the equipment? What's the nature of that?
The main purpose is to update the equipment. Some of this equipment, I don't know specifically for this site. A lot of the equipment's 30 plus years old. It's time to renew it. We install remote operating valves, so people don't actually have to go out there to operate the valves if necessary. We can do it from a remote location, and upgrade the buildings themselves to spruce them up, make them look a little more palatable to the neighboring property owners. But it's an upgrade of the facility for sure. I'd have to double check to see what kind of extra capacity we would get out of this. I'm not 100% certain on that part.
All right. Other questions for the petitioner, Mr. Gantino?
Yeah, is there, I noticed to the south, it's across the alleyway, and then the closest would be across another small parking lot there is sort of the closest residence. But my question for you is there going to be any equipment that would be outside of the building that's being proposed that operates or would operate at hours that would be audible to any of the residents to the south there?
Doug, can you help me on that one? This one has a heater?
Yes, it does have a heater, and the heater is directly south of the building, and the heater will run when it's cold, obviously, to heat the gas. But the sound decibel there is someplace around about 75 or so decibels in there. And it should, basically the sound should dissipate prior to the property line. The main sound will actually be going to the west there.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll just chip in here. I mean, there's also a parking south of the alley. So the closest resident isn't right on the alley. It's beyond the alley. There's a parking area there for the ramen place. All right, I'm going to, if anybody has any more questions, if not, I'd like to ask for the public comment at this time.
We had one public comment, and I will play that for you right now. Doing a shared screen and sharing the sound. So one moment while I do that.
Hi, my name is Greg, and I'm one of the owners of Edo Ramen. This is for the case address 4325 13 Mile Road. Just a few questions for the building for Consumer Energy. How many employees will be there? The actual use of the building. Parking is going to be limited. And last but not least, we've been suffering because we have a restaurant for construction. How is it going to work through the alleyway there? We can't lose any more business. Have a great day and good luck. Thank you.
That concludes the public comment.
I might have missed the public commenter give their name. I'm sorry.
Let me repeat it.
Hi, my name is Greg, and I'm one of the owners of Edo Ramen.
Oh,
This is for
okay.
the case.
Didn't give his last name. That's okay. He's one of the owners there. So, okay, very good. I guess I would address if the petitioners want to address the issues for the record there regarding the construction. I think you already answered that there isn't anybody stationed here as far as that goes.
Correct. Yeah, no one is actually stationed at this facility. And in terms of,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
my apologies. I was just gonna follow up with the second part of that question in terms of the use of the building. That many of the valves and whatnot are inside that building. It's just to house the building. As you mentioned, no one is stationed there. Nobody works out of that building. We are providing, I believe it's one parking spot on site just for when a maintenance person should happen to show up to maintenance the site. But there is no one who regularly works out of this location.
So does the chain link fence to the south along the alley, that'll have a gate on it then, I take it?
Correct.
Okay. And during the construction, are you going to interfere with the traffic in the alley or any of the Edo parking spaces, which I just mentioned?
I'm not familiar with where his business parking is. If we're talking about the parking lot to the south,
Yes.
no, I don't anticipate us being in that parking spot at all, or parking lot rather. Kind of hence the reason we're asking also for that temporary workspace to the east so we can stay out of things like that parking lot. And then, yes, we would be using that alley to traverse back and forth between the temporary work area and the construction site. But no, we have no plans to impede on that parking lot.
All right. Of course, during construction, some of your workers might want to pick up some ramen, but Mr. Klooster.
Very possible, yes, sir.
Would the petitioner be able to clarify the proposed valves as indicated and the proposed filter separator along the east side of the property? Those are above grade.
Correct. Those valves and the filter separator are above grade.
Thank you.
Other questions for the petitioners? I have a question for Mr. Twing. This property is, I suppose it's an industrial use, but is there going to be requirements here for underground storm detention? Are there requirements for permeable surface? And have those things, I suppose we get to that in the site plan, yes? So I'll hold my question. Sorry about that. Question on the table that we're going to talk about here in a second is the special land use is the first issue. Is there further discussion about the special land use? All right. Is there a motion regarding the special land use request from the petitioner? Is that a hand, Mr. Klooster? Or were you just touching your cap?
It was an adjustment, but I will make a motion to approve the special land use.
Is there support? Commissioner Douglas is supported. Is there further discussion? Mr. Gantina.
Well, I just wanted to make a request of the petitioner, should this be approved, with the temporary work area having to traverse across a street and then all the way up the alley, and the restaurant to the east expressing a little bit of concern about the impact to their business, I would just request that we have a pretty diligent signage plan put together that would actually call for making sure we've got adequate signage and warnings for anyone that's utilizing that alley. Because if we're going to have, like you said, large pipes being pre-assembled and then transported across and up that alley, I'm just concerned about conflict with any customers that may be coming to pick up food from that restaurant or anyone using that alley for that matter. So just a suggestion to make sure that we address a signage plan to make sure that that doesn't create conflicts.
Thank you. Any comment from the petitioner on that, Mr. Gantina's comment?
I don't foresee that being any issue whatsoever. We can accommodate that, I believe.
All right. All right. Any other discussion on the special land use request? All right. Seeing none, I'm going to call for the vote. Mayor Fournier,
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas,
Yes.
Ms. Beaky,
Yes.
Mr. Klooster,
Yes.
Mr. Gantina,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So the motion passes and the special land use is approved. Now we move on to the site plan.
Real briefly to run through the staff report and recommendation on the site plan. The first item that we've indicated was that the petitioner would submit a revised plan to the planning division so that the fencing is consistent. One of the details indicates there's barbed wire along the fencing, and we're suggesting that be removed. Also, we're, as an additional item here, as I mentioned previously, we're looking for details on the TWA location in terms of how it's going to be used, where material might be stored, whether there's a construction trailer on that site, things like that. So we would look for additional details in that regard. And that could as well address Mr. Gantina's question in terms of any traffic signage that might be needed in terms of that operation. So with that, a little bit of an expanded item, number one. Number two is the petitioner indicated that one parcel used to have a different business on it. It's technically listed as two separate parcels, and they're going to need to combine them into one property ID in order to build across the parcel. So item two is to combine them into one single piece. Item three, based on the Planning Commission's action, if you approve it, the landscaping and screening would be approved pursuant to the plan that's submitted. The remaining ones are standard contingencies in terms of compliance with other city codes and requirements, i.e. including any determination for site drainage and stormwater and so on.
All right. So the answer is if there are requirements for that, they need to be complied with. All right. I will turn this back to the petitioners and they can tell us about their site plan.
Similar to what we discussed during the special land use, going over the staff report, there's nothing in the staff report that's objectionable to consumers whatsoever. We fully understand that we need to combine those two parcels. We will provide you with a detailed description of the TWA area, or the temporary work area, and a site plan for that area as well, just a sketch plan, if you will, showing how we would plan to utilize that space. We have provided a landscape plan. My understanding is that was acceptable at this point in time, which shows landscaping along Elwood as well as at the corner of 13 Mile in Elwood. And in terms of the engineering portion, stormwater and whatnot, I'll ask Doug Scott, our engineer, to answer any questions that you may have in that regard.
Yeah, and we have been in contact with the engineering department. Mr. Mines has helped us out quite a bit as far as the requirements, and we are going to have underground storm detention that drains, basically is stored and then has a meter discharge out into the storm sewer that's in the south, south of the site in the alley there as well. And so we will be complying with the city's requirements on the stormwater. One other thing too is that the light fixtures that are in there will be on a switch, and they won't be on all the time. They'll just be there on when somebody's in there maintaining and stuff, and if they have to be working at night or something like that. So,
what about exterior lighting?
That's what I'm talking about. Actually, any of the lighting inside the facility there, in the yard will be on basically switches so they can be turned on when they're working there. So,
All right, not a motion detector or something like that.
no.
All right, are there questions for the petitioner, Mr. Cantina?
I apologize if I missed it on the drawings, but I'm looking at the chain link fence detailing. And the question I have there is that a screened fence at all, or is it opaque, or are you going to be able to see through the fence?
That will be a standard chain link fence. And basically it's for security purposes in the back there.
Other questions for the petitioner? I have one. Looking at the building, it sort of looks the way you've drawn it like a pole barn. Can you explain to me about the materials and construction of the building?
Have you run with that, Joe?
Sure. Currently, the building, it is more like a pole barn type building. It's a brown and tan, which is our basic typical colors for buildings like this through consumers. As mentioned earlier, it's a 50 by 40, basically steel pole barn that will house the equipment within it.
What is the roof material?
It's steel as well.
This will be a standing seam metal roof or what?
Yeah.
Correct. A standing seam, yes, sir.
All right. Is there, you have some green space on the outside of the fence. What will that include?
On the northwest and west sides, it's we have a landscaping treatment that goes along between the landscape wall and the sidewalk. There's a landscape treatment that goes between there. Some shrubs for the most part, with it looks like some ornamental trees at the corner.
Yeah, we tried to dress that up as much as possible there. There's not a whole lot of width in there, obviously, between the sidewalk and the wall. And then out front on 13 Mile, just with the number of utilities that run through there, just trying to plant any type of materials was just not feasible. So.
Right, you've got some plantings in the triangle there on the corner.
Right.
All right.
Correct.
Are there other questions for the petitioner about site plan? Is there further discussion about the site plan? Is there a motion relative to the site plan? Commissioner Douglas.
Yes, I will move approval with the condition that that they submit to the staff documents showing how they will use the temporary area and how they will transport materials and use proper signage.
And you're talking about proper signage during construction.
Yes, thank you.
So the motion is to approve the site plan with the stated contingencies, with the elaboration that their petition will also provide on the site plan a further description of the temporary work area, how materials will be moved, and proper signage will be used. Is that correct? Okay, is there a second? Second by Mr. Gantina. Is there further discussion of the site plan? Ms. Beaky.
Just one brief comment. To the degree that it'd be feasible, I don't think we have anything again in our ordinance that requires this at this point, but we make this point quite a bit. The landscaping you do put in, to the degree feasible, if you can use native Michigan species rather than ornamental or European or Asian, that would be preferred, just in the sense of long-term viability as well as improvement to our overall environment. So native Michigan species, if it's possible. Thank you.
Any other comment or
Understood.
discussion?
Yeah, we can have our landscape architect look at that and make sure that it's a native species for sure.
Thank you.
All right, further comment or discussion? All right, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Mayor Fournier,
Aye.
Commissioner Douglas,
Yes.
Ms. Beaky,
Yes.
Mr. Klooster,
Yes.
Mr. Cantina,
Yes.
and I am a yes. So the motion passes to approve the site plan with the stated contingencies and Commissioner Douglas's additions. Congratulations, thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Have a
thank
good
you.
evening.
All right, the next order of business is a sign variance. Item SB 21-01-01. This is at 100 South Main Street. And we've seen this project before. And Mr. Twing, tell us about this.
You do have a sign variance request from the property referenced at 100 South Main. You have seen prior requests and staff did include those for your information as part of the packet with the different business names at that time. What's in front of you this evening, and I'll walk through it by facade. If you have the drawings up in front of you, the building department looked at the north facade of the building, or the facade that runs along 11 Mile Road. Wall signs are allowed to, under the sign ordinance, to have one wall sign. As you see in the write-up, the wall signs proposed total 5. Those include 4 new ones. And if you look at the plans, that includes one that's referenced Pearl's Deep Dive, one that's that says Oysters Rockefeller, one that says Cocktails, one that says Lobster Rolls. And then there's also an existing sign for Pinky's Rooftop. Those are the 5 that are identified for you. The second item that's listed there is the distance that wall signs are allowed to project out. There are 2 variances in regards to that. The sign ordinance allows a projection of 12 inches. There are 3 signs that project out 30 inches. That's the Oysters Rockefeller, the Cocktails, and the Lobster Roll. There's an additional sign at the corner that projects out some 68.5 inches and is labeled Pearl's Deep Dive. So that's all the north facade items in the listed variances. On the east facade, or the facade that faces Main Street, again, wall signs are allowed to have 1. Under this proposal, they're proposing 2. One is a new one for Bohemian, and one is an existing Pinky's Rooftop sign. That sign is kind of the one at the top that wraps the corner of the restaurant. And again, listed there, the Bohemian sign projects out as part of that one canopy, some 68.5 inches, where it's again limited to 12 inches under the ordinance. The next couple of items in regards to what's been listed in the appeal are related to that projecting sign, in that it wraps the building. It extends beyond the vertical walls, both on the east and west side. So those are the other variances listed pursuant to the building department's review. If you have any questions on that, I'd be happy to address them.
I do have a question, Mr. Twing. So just to be clear about this, these signs on the ground level are canopies, but I don't know what I'm sorry, I didn't study this before the meeting. I guess I should have. We are treating them as signs, even though they're made of, I suppose this one's made of cloth around the corner. I don't know what the others are made of, but is there any distinction between those two things in our ordinance? Can you just sort of clarify that?
Yeah, well, the way the building department has treated structures in the sense of what's proposed for you, both the one that includes the sign that wraps the building and the ones that are above the windows, they've treated those as structural elements and therefore wall signs. And that's how the determination was made. They've been very consistent on that with other, and it's based on how it's put together and dealt with and designed.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Twing before we turn to the petitioner? Ms. Beaky?
Just again, following that and just related to that, do we have any specific guidance on awnings and their size per, whether if they didn't have writing on them, are there regulations regarding the awnings?
Under the building code, yes.
Okay. But then because they're written on, the rules change because they become a sign. That's how the building department is treating that.
The building department is not treating these as awnings. The building department is treating these as wall signs.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and you know what, Mayor Fournier, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to also, you know, and I know it's mentioned, but maybe it's worth reiterating. I think the motivation for this business is, you know, a change in business concept where, you know, there's going to be different businesses operating here. And we've seen that with other, you know, facilities with like the HR Pro guys and all that. But I think my question is we had done this before, I think, for this corner with the awnings and everything. The only thing that's changed is, you know, a reskinning of the business for a lot of this. Some of it might be a little different, but it'd be good to sort through those facts. You know, the precedent we have.
Well, if you, and that's partly why we included the prior request, the signs that include, and that's how I'll reference them, oysters, Rockefeller, cocktails, and lobster rolls were not part of, those are additions. The sign that wraps the first floor entryway is actually extending further out than what you approved previously based on the submission. So it's extending farther out over the right of way. And so that's part of the appeal. And there was no Bohemian sign on that side of the building. I believe it was Diamond Steakhouse right at the corner. So it's an addition in that regard as well.
Commissioner Douglas.
So the wraparound sign on the second story remains just with a new name. It continues to wrap around. It continues to be the same size, but the name changes.
The one on the second floor is, yes, is.
It'll be the same name on the second.
It's not changing. It's Pinky's.
The ground floor is splitting into two. So it'll end up being two signs instead of one sign on the ground awning wall signs.
Yeah, because we're, if I may interject, and thank you for having us, but because the first floor is changing into two different concepts, that's why you see, you know, in which way we have it, the way we have it done before, that it was just diamonds. So, you know, it was all just one concept. So that's why we're trying to separate and have each one have its own identity and have its own personality. And that's kind of the thinking behind it.
So, but Pinky's remains and remains the
Pinky's
same.
remains. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mhm.
Because that sign is entered into these documents and you're into this proposal, and yet
I think it's tricky because, you know, this is it's not a typical situation because there's three concepts, you know, there's three different establishments in one building. So it kind of doesn't set the normal precedent, you know, from assuming what you guys normally would do with signage. So we're just trying to have each one have its own identity, you know, in other words, so.
Okay, let me just interrupt. The question obviously did call for a response there, but I'd like to have the petitioners introduce themselves. And why don't you explain to us why you're asking for this variance? from the get-go. Go ahead. But introduce yourself first.
Sure, I'm Adam Merkel. I'm the owner of the building and the business.
Jeremiah Armstrong.
And Jeremiah, Roman from Ron and Roman tried to log in, but for some reason he's not able to get back in. He was kind of spearheading this. I don't know if there's a way we can get him in. But Jeremiah is Roman is on the line as well, I believe. Right,
I have
Jeremiah?
him on my phone. He just can't log in. I guess he got kicked out and he can't get back in. If there's a way to re-add him.
I don't know what the technical aspects of that is. I mean, he can.
He would have to click on the link again, and then Carol would, as the host, would have to readmit him.
Roman, have you tried? Can you try
Yeah, I'm trying again right now. I'm trying to join right now. No, unable to rejoin this meeting. The host removed you from the meeting.
That's fine. Roman.
I'm sorry, he was not on my list, so I have to go by the list I'm given.
Okay, that's fine.
Can everyone hear Roman okay to be able to explain, or no? Is that okay, or should you want to take it, Jeremiah?
And interject anything if I hear.
Okay. Sorry, we can keep going. That's fine.
Okay, Commissioner Douglas, do you have a comment?
No, it was technical support that's now moot.
Okay. To the extent that we can hear Ron, is it Ron? Roman, we can't hear him when he speaks, so we can probably get some of his input. But go ahead, tell us about why you need or want this variance.
Well, so the reason we're going in for the variance, we had it previously approved for, that's why the upstairs sign for Pinkies is on it again, is because that was part of the original variance that got approved. So I guess the transition from that original variance is changing the one sign into two on the ground floor because of the two new concepts that were split up on 11 Mile Road are to really help enhance that storefront. Since our building's shifted into two different spaces, we're really just subject to that small corner. So kind of opening up the storefront a little bit to have more light and action. But those are the two couple
and to
changes.
Identify it as being part of the restaurant.
Yeah.
Not just a big blank wall.
To identify it as part of the restaurant, giving it verbiage and kind of connecting it to that space.
Can you tell us a little bit about what's going to go on inside? Previously, it was one room. You say you're splitting up into two spaces. Are you dividing it with dividing walls? What are you doing?
Yeah, so when you come in on the airlock, we built a new airlock that has two separate entrances. One that goes into Pearl's Deep Dive, which is going to be small plates, seafood, cocktails, a little moodier. And then you go in over to the left door into Bohemia. It's completely separated off with partition walls and doors, and that is keeping the same bar. Comment more on the menu, but yeah, really creating two unique spaces out of the one completely separated. And that's why we're looking at two separate sign components to really relay that there's a differentiation between the spaces.
Each one has its own storefront.
Yeah, so each one has its own storefront.
Yeah, we're running them as two completely separate restaurants. When you walk in, you can go left for the Mediterranean, then right for Pearls. So we just really want them to have their own identity, on both sides of the corner there, since it's such a great corner.
All right, Commissioner Douglas.
So why does the sign around the corner sign around the two doors with Pearls on one side and Bohemia on the other, why does it have to project as much as you are proposing?
Yeah, that's the existing awning. That was a
I'm sorry, you're breaking up.
feature for the variance that we had gone in for before and gotten approved, and it was approved through the building department as an architectural feature. Pretty much, it's an open air awning in all aspects, but That's already existing, so we're really just modifying the one sign to be two
I
on the
think-
existing condition.
I think Jeremiah
not
got
making
cut
a
off for a second there, but what we're doing is really, we're just reskinning what's there already. We're not really changing the current diamonds. We're just refacing that is all we're doing.
Okay, all right. Yeah, not as clear in the descriptions as it is when you say it. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Yeah.
Ms. Beaky. You gotta unmute yourself.
I did the opposite. Sorry, I did the opposite. For the awnings that are along 11 Mile, those are awnings, and those are the ones that are currently there because Diamonds has awnings right now, right? Or are they different?
They're different. So we have the existing awnings that we're reskinning on Main Street. That's for Bohemia. Those are staying and we're recladding them. And then the ones on 11 Mile for Pearls, those 3 that we're going in for the new signage on, those are new awnings.
Okay.
So that's
And the
2
new-
and 5 in the
And those don't project
street.
nearly as far out.
Primary storefront for Pearls.
Yeah, and it's the primary storefront for Pearls is that whole window facade.
Right, and those awnings on 11 Mile do have, it covers your head. I mean, there is something, they're not open air like the one on the corner, is that correct?
Those ones are open air as well.
Right, because I just want to point out again from a walkability and usability perspective, this is one of the most surprising things in all of my studies on walkability, which I've done quite extensive. When there is something over people's head, they tend to linger and walk more, like through porticos or through any kinds of cupboards. So I think that's a good addition on that side in terms of an awning feature. And again, personally, the fact that there's words on it to me is not as relevant as to the building department. So I'm glad to see that addition of those awnings. And as far as the reskinning goes, I also appreciate that we did have extensive discussions a couple years ago on this. And on that corner, I see reskinning the one that's there now to me is very logical, given the change in business. That's my comment. Thank you.
Mr. Klooster.
Yes, can you, one of the petitioners, explain a little bit of what white Sergei Ferrari vinyl clad on, just describe it a little more of what the vinyl cladding is?
So it's just like how you would wrap a normal awning with canvas. A lot of places now use vinyl. It has a similar feel. Canvas is a little softer, but it protects from the water. It holds up a lot better, but it's just a separate material that wraps the framework of those U-shaped awnings.
But it's a similar heft to it. It's got kind of that canvasy heft to it. It's not like a see-through vinyl.
No, it's opaque. So it's like a fabric almost. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's in lieu of canvas.
Just real quick question from me. So just to follow up on what Ms. Beaky was talking about. So those awnings with the words on them on the 11 Mile side would keep rain off somebody who was standing there. They're not open like the one on the corner.
No, they are open.
They are
I'm
open.
sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a framework. So the cladding of the vinyl is on the front face of the
Okay.
open air awning, same as the front corner side.
All right. Well, I guess I would ask a follow-up question then. These are sticking out 30 inches, if I understand correctly?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Hold on. Yes.
All right. What is that? It's just a matter of preference? Why 30 inches?
Well, we want to get some impact out of them, kind of like you said, to connect it to the street. You get a lot more activation when people are walking under spaces and
It's visually connected to the corner awning too.
Yeah.
It's all part of the same device.
it connects to the front awning, and it's a cohesive element that we're putting on the building now. But yeah, really just doing some sort of framed piece to activate that side of the building and show as a storefront for the new occupant that's going to be there.
Ms. Beaky.
I guess now I have a follow-up question because I misunderstood your explanation last time. Is there a way that that could have a coverage? Because it would be better as from a pedestrian point of view if it did have something to keep people's rain off. If since they're new and you're going to install them new, because if I'm correct, the ones on the front of the building do have an angle and a fabric, don't they?
The ones that on Main Street do, yes. But I think that's part of what we're going for is the design aesthetic of having a separate type of awning on the side to have their own kind of unique element.
Mhm.
And that also ties into the front, so really trying to just make the whole building cohesive and still make two separate impacts on it.
Right. And so I guess to my point earlier, if it did have something that kept people's heads dry, it to me is an awning. But if it doesn't, then it does revert to becoming just a sign. And again, from the positive experience of the person walking, the coverage over their head is a factor that would be more useful as far as my perspective is concerned. Is that a possibility or no?
It's definitely something we could look at doing. Roman, do you have a comment on that?
If that's what would get, first of all, visually, it'll all tie together. It's easy. It's easy enough to slip a little angled piece inside of it that's covered by the fascia panels and leave a drip edge along the front edge of it to allow the smoke to drain off.
We could do an integral angled portion in there to still get the effect of a separate awning, but put the drip screen on it.
I mean, I think that would be preferred in the sense that it is an awning with the word on it rather than a sign that is protruding so far over the sidewalk. Again, from a user perspective, as someone standing on the sidewalk.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good idea. Do you agree, Adam?
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Yep.
Sure.
Appreciate that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I have another quick question. What is the coloration here? Are they gray? Are they black? What color are these awnings? The new awnings?
Oh, did you get the rendering? I
have a drawing that shows them to be gray. Maybe I didn't look far enough.
I believe they're white, aren't they, Jeremiah?
There's a rendering. The new projecting awnings that we were just talking about, those are a white vinyl, and it'll have black lettering on it. So the 4-inch tall lettering is in black, silk screener painted on by the awning contractor. And then on the corner sign, half of it is, as it gets reskinned, it's going to be in white, gloss white, and then the other half is going to be white, but it's got the floral artwork on it with the paisleys and everything like that.
Would they share your screen so you could show them?
Yeah. Do you guys have that rendering? I could share the screen. Okay, I'm sorry.
I don't think we have such a rendering. I don't think so.
Is there a way I can?
Jeremiah just made you a co-host. You should be able to share your screen now.
Okay, thank you. So sorry, I thought you had this all along. These are the three open air that we're going to be switching up. So that's the white vinyl. It's got black lettering on it. And then this is the existing 6-sided or 5-sided, I'm sorry, front open air awning that's considered a wall sign. This portion is getting painted white. That'll be identifying Pearl's Deep Dive. It'll be painted on there. This side is getting painted with the graphics, and then it will have the logo right there. That's Bohemia. So that's accentuating the one storefront now and the second storefront, and trying to keep it in a cohesive nature and still accenting that there's a new business in there.
Okay, well, that rendering makes it a lot easier to understand your intentions, your design intentions there.
Yes, I'm sorry. The one difference is these red sign lights are actually black. Not that affects the signage, but that's what we have.
All right. Very good. Thank you for that.
Putting in the middle with
that probably should be submitted as part of the record. How do we do that?
I can send it in.
Can you email that to the department?
Yeah, yep, I'll send it over right now.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions, comments, Ms. Beaky?
I'm sorry, just one more clarifying question now, having seen that. So along Main Street, the current awnings that are currently the striped awnings that we approved last time, are these exactly the same size as those awnings?
Yeah, yeah, they're just getting a new skinning on it and then getting painted that graphic.
Okay.
And we're actually on that portion, we are adding swag canvas in between the awnings as well. That'll help protect as people are walking down the sidewalk. So there's not the gaps in between. So it's a little stylish element that'll also help protect them over there.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Other questions for the petitioners? For Mr. Twing, discussion, comment? Well, I'll make a quick comment. I'm glad that you showed us the rendering because it makes it clear that you're trying to create this, you know, two-face, half and half, whatever, impact what you're trying to do there. And you're balancing off with these awnings on the north side. So I think I get that, what your intentions there are. Certainly, I certainly would take that into account in making my decision about this, is that your design is sensible and hopefully in the execution will look as good as it does on the rendering, which will be attractive. So
thank you.
Thank you.
I do have one question for clarification. I believe the drawings that are in your packet depict and label the awnings along Main Street as existing canvas canopies and frames painted white. I don't believe there's any indication on the drawings that they're getting painted a bunch of different colors. I believe that's the first time I've seen that. I've been looking. I don't see anything in the drawings that have been provided to the building department that indicates those are getting painted with any sort of mural or other indication on them. I don't know that they'll treat that as okay.
I'm sorry about that.
yeah, I see what you're saying, Mr. Twing. Yes, on drawing A201, there is a note saying existing canvas canopy and frames paint white.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There's a discrepancy there. There is the painted art graphic on there as well as on the corner graphic that's on the corner of the building.
Well, my only point bringing it up is if they treat it as a sign, it's not part of covered, because if they treat it as separate signs, you may have an appeal of additional signage in the review. So it's not part of the packet. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, this is a sort of an interesting point. The rendering shows a colorful decor matching the Bohemia, or at least being complementary to the Bohemia sign. Is that considered a sign if it has a decoration on it, or does it have to have words on it to be a sign?
Yeah, go ahead.
The sign ordinance, we don't get into reading. And the way the sign ordinance is set up is anything that draws attention to the building is considered a sign. It's very practical and likely that it could be considered a sign. Anyways, my point in bringing it up is it's not part of the packet that was submitted or reviewed by the building department.
It is inconsistent with the package. I've so noted for the record there. I think you're correct.
To us, it's a big graphic representation. It's almost like having striped awnings, but adding a little bit more playful aspect to the artwork that goes on with the paisleys and things like that. It's more of a patterning, just like how the striped awnings that were up there was a pattern. And what we look at it is just an artistic expression on the building, on those awnings. And then the signage itself is the brand logo that really says where you're going. I think we look at it as more of a colorful paint job that goes on it.
It represents what it is.
Commissioner Douglas. Oh, you muted yourself there.
I got it. So Mr. Twing, what would be the best course of action to most simply help the applicant and the city decide if those colorful awnings are allowed? I mean, because indeed, what are we approving here tonight? Because what we're approving here tonight is white awnings on the east facade. And yet if they show up with colorful awnings and the building department says nix, then are they just come back here for potentially another variance? I mean, how can we simply resolve this?
Well, if the packet that was submitted and reviewed, notices that were put out and noticed in the general public as part of the meeting do not include those awnings.
Right.
So I would say you're not acting upon those awnings. If the building department says in their review that they're fine and don't have an objection, then they can proceed. If they say no, they're fine, then no, they'd have to come back and resubmit and ask for those to be dealt with.
So the building department does not comment on applications, on sign applications submitted to the planning department? All their action is retroactive?
No, the building department is the first entity that looks at an application. The building department makes a determination as to whether it complies with the sign ordinance or it does not. If they say it complies, then it moves forward and they get a sign permit. If the building department says it doesn't comply, they can either modify their sign application so that it does, or they can apply for an appeal and then it comes to the planning commission for your action. So the first determination is the building department in looking at compliance with the sign ordinance.
So can we postpone action on this and instruct the applicant to revise their designs or add that rendering to their application and have the planning department or the building department relook at it before we approve or deny variances?
Well, you can certainly table it and postpone it. I don't know that that saves any time if they're looking to save time.
Yeah, I mean, we are looking to save time, and what we were looking at is that if the signage is its own component, we have the floral components shown on the rest of it, that if that's not even considered a sign, then it wasn't even part of our variance package. So I didn't know if we had to, I guess if it's not even considered signage, then I guess we wouldn't even be coming in front of it for a variance.
The mayor had his hand up. Mr. Mayor?
I'm willing to listen more. I guess I'm just trying to figure out, along with Commissioner Douglas, a reasonable remedy here that, and all the things that are going on here with, the different concepts coming in, the business reinventing itself, and really, what we're talking, we want to follow procedure, but, we're talking about something that's 90% there, 95% there, and we have the omission of some paisley dots on a white canvas. And, while I understand the strict interpretation, like, oh, it draws attention to the awning, I guess you could say, so do, some vertical white and green stripes, you know, that you might see somewhere else too. So I want to make sure we're not trying to judge the content of those awnings too much. It does follow, you know, an artistic flow. And, you know, there probably is some judgment here we can exercise without having to, you know, I mean, like I said, I'm not sure every awning that goes up in town that has a stripe on it comes to us to say, oh, well, that's drawing attention, you know, and it's got, you know, blue and yellow stripes. We got to look at it and, you know, approve it. So I just, there's some sense here that we should exercise in finding that way to, you know, accommodate, you know, what appears to be a small omission seems to be maybe the right thing to do here, but I'm going to listen. That's just my thought of where we could go.
Mr. Grantina.
So I guess I have a question in terms of, since the petitioner did share the rendering as part of this meeting, and it's effectively part of the public record at this point because they shared it, would we be able to approve the variance, I guess, either conditioned by the rendering that was made a part of the public record, or in some other way, I guess, indicate that we are approving the sign variance, if this is what we end up doing. We are approving the sign variance, but also sort of indicating to the building department that we do, in fact, you know, support and approve the rendering that was shared during the public forum. Is that possible in some way?
Well, I'll just respond to that if you don't mind, is that I guess I do have a problem. If something is a question, it should go through the building department filter first before it comes to us so they can analyze it. And if they consider it a sign, they can put it in the staff report. If they don't consider it a sign, then it's not part of the variance. So I do have a problem with that. However, the question here, is it a pattern or is it a sign? I just read the sign definition. And I'd say, I think it would be straining to say this is a sign, but I think that what my suggestion is we consider and vote on the variances before us, which under what was submitted, which was submitted in time to let the building company or building department look at it, is the one with the white awning. So that's what we should look at. I think my sense, and I'll telegraph this, is that I don't think it's a sign. But I'm just saying that out loud so the department knows that if they determine it's a sign and it comes back, I'm probably going to vote for a variance because I think it's not a sign. But, and we can give a sense of that. But I don't think we can vote on something that didn't come before us in the proper form and the building department didn't get a chance to pass it. So that's my thing.
And I guess to dovetail on that, a general procedure is you have to be an appeal from something, some determination that was made. Very similar and I'll use the Zoning Board of Appeals as an example. If a petitioner comes in with a certain list of variances that have been noticed, been public, you can't add additional waivers on top of that. You can't add an additional waiver to something that hasn't been noticed and hasn't been put out in the public. So my suggestion is very similar to Mr. Gonzalez, is that you vote on what's in front of you in the packet. You ignore the rendering. It's not part of the packet, has no dimensions on it. It's a meaningless document, and move on. If they submit for permits with building, I'll very much articulate to them commentary, but if it's determined that it is a sign, and I'll use murals as an example. We've had many painted murals that have been treated as signs. So, and some of those have gone through the Arts Commission to be treated as public art. So I don't want to articulate and say whether this is a sign or not a sign based on 5 minutes of review. So my recommendation to you is you vote on the packet that was provided with the application and vote it up or down or vote for certain variances or against them. And that includes the white frame painted awnings. And if they submit colored ones, we'll deal with those when they come through.
Mayor.
In the process, in the event that they move forward, let's say with the design on the white, building would issue them a citation, or not, hopefully not, but they would still have the opportunity, Mr. Twing, to come here, and even though it would be retroactive, they could still, make out an application then and say, hey, yeah, we didn't, and go through the process and either take them down. I mean, they could take that risk based on how the building department would do it. But if they did it, there's nothing that prohibits them from, after the fact, if they need to come here and seek an additional approval, correct? I mean, we've done a lot of these. I mean, I don't say we've done a lot, but we've done a number where petitioners, I'll say in a lot of cases wrongfully, have made changes without this, major changes without informing this body. And I don't think this levitates to that situation, that, level. But I'm just trying to throw it out there. In the event they can choose to go white and then apply, or they can choose to do the design and see what happens. But either way, whatever they decide to do in their own judgment, nothing would prohibit them either way from coming back here and seeking an additional approval, correct?
No, but I'm never going to suggest that somebody do something.
Nor am I, but I just want to know.
What I would suggest they do is, if they want the paisley colored awnings, is that after this meeting tonight, if you grant all of the other variances, they submit revised plans to the building office for that signage, and we'll move forward from there.
And
so I would resubmit just as a separate sign variance for just the paisley items.
No, I'm not looking for you to submit for an appeal for the paisley items. Just put your sign package back together and submit what you want a permit for. And if that includes paisley awnings on 11 or on Main, include them. If it's determined that those are signs, then the 3 paisley awnings you won't get a permit for, you'll get it for the others. So again, I think we're getting convoluted based on plans we didn't have.
Yeah,
I would suggest you act on what you have in front of you, and we'll deal with the other part in turn.
Yeah, I certainly concur that with Mr. Twing, because it may never come back, is if they decide to go with the paisley awnings and the building department decides not a sign, we'll never see it. And if they do decide it's a sign, we'll see it. I'm certain that this petitioner isn't going to put the signs up without submitting it to the building department, so we won't have to worry about that. So yeah, I think we should vote on what we got. I also would just make a comment. The mere use of the word paisley indicates that it's a pattern, not a sign, but that's just me. So, any other comments? Ms. Beakey, did you ever hand it? Mr. Gantino?
Oh, okay, yeah, real briefly, after Mr. Twing explained and kind of gave us some guidance on how we should proceed, I tend to agree. I think that is probably the best way to proceed, but I also wanted to get on the record that what exists there today has been approved, and what's being proposed to me is no different than just changing the color of canvas that's currently there. I agree with Mr. Casada in the sense that if the question were put to me, the way the ordinance is written, I would not treat it as a sign either, a wall sign. And I think you make a good point by the use of the word paisley indicates it's a pattern more than anything else. So I guess I just wanted to state that I believe the way that we're going to proceed is the right way to do it. I would not consider it a sign, but we'll see what the building department says. Hopefully they will hear our opinions as well.
All right.
I have a quick comment though, just bringing it up that on the actual submittal, we do have the paisley graphic all over that front corner awning. And so that was part of our original signage, showing that design aspect wasn't part of our overall square footages for signage. So technically this would be part of your determination on whether or not that is signage or not. So it's, if you look at the elevations with the patterning that's behind the Bohemia logo.
Right, you have the paisley on the east side, and then you have it white on the north side, right?
Yes. So I guess technically that is being voted on right now, whether or not that is signage or not. So I guess what I would prefer prefer in this, that isn't considered signage, would additional of the same sort on the Main Street awnings be considered just part of that overall approval in this?
Well,
I
like
think because instead of coming back again and submitting everything, then does everything become a brand new variance again with that included signage? Because I guess technically right now I'm already showing it as non-signage and hoping for your approval. On the corner awning sign. where
Yeah,
the both
well, I
windows-
see that. I see that. I think we're gonna vote on what you have in front of us, and I think the point you're making is that this Paisley element on the east side is not listed as a sign on the staff report, which I think that is correct. And so again, that being the case, I still think we can't vote on something that isn't really before us. And if it's not a sign, then you won't have to worry about coming back here for the awnings on Main Street.
So I guess my question is, when I come back, am I only going in for,
Well, you might not need to come back.
oh,
That's my point. So we're gonna vote on what we have in front of us, because that's the right procedure, and then Mr. Gantino.
Well, I just want to help clarify it for the applicant, because I think he's concerned about having to delay and come back. So what we're proposing that we're going to be voting on is the information that's been submitted, understanding that it maybe doesn't accurately reflect what you ultimately may want the permit for. So what's going to happen is we are going to take a vote on what's been submitted, assuming that it's approved and it passes. You will then apply for your building permit. The building department will look at what you submit. If it does indicate those Paisley patterns on there, and they take a different opinion than in some of our discussions are, at that point, there may be the potential for a resubmission or something along those lines. If they determine that it's not, in fact, a sign, then you may not need to come back for anything at that point. So just to make sure that you're clear in understanding what action is in front of us right now.
okay.
I just have a real quick question. So if we were fortunate to get an approval on what we have this evening, if we did have to come back at some time, would it just be for those 3 awnings? Everything else that you see in front of you today would sort of already be, if we were approved? That
Yes.
would, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Commissioner Douglas.
So I just want to kind of recap what is in front of us here. We have a sign variance with items A through G. And Mr. Twing will correct me if I'm wrong, but of those, the only 2 that represent something other than a superficial reskinning of what's already there are item D, allowing 5 wall signs on the north side, and item F, waiving 18 inches from the maximum permitted 12 projections on the north side. Mr. Twing, am I correct in my summary?
I will check, but if I look at the history of it, the variance you granted for the canopy that sticks out over the Main and Washington and wraps the corner was previously approved at a 36-inch extension beyond 12 inches. What's listed in front of you this evening is 56.5 inches. Whether it got built at 36 or got built at 56, I guess I don't know, but based on the drawings that were provided, there's a distinct difference there. And then you're going to have 2 wall signs on the east facade as well, because there is not the Bohemian sign, or there is not a sign at that location on that side either.
When you say 2 signs on the east side, what's the second sign?
The Pinky sign that's on the 2nd floor.
Which already exists.
Right, but got a variance. So.
Yes, I see.
Right. You're granting a second one.
Yes.
And then further question, the 5 wall signs on, okay, so the rule is your sign is either 100 square feet or 10% of the total space. As I read it, the 5 wall signs on the north side, just looking at the drawings, do not add up to 100 square feet. A safe summary?
That's a safe summary.
Okay. So I'm going to move approval of items A through G in this sign variance.
Is there support? Support from Mr. Grantina. Is there further discussion? Ms. Beaky?
And I'll speak to my motion. I mean, to me, the only real change, putting aside the difference between the 36 and the 56, I mean, the only real difference is the projections on the north side. And I don't find any of this to be out of line with anything else we might have operating in the city right now. So that's my motion.
Ms. Beaky?
Again, a point of clarification. So is this, I generally agree completely, and I'd like to have the addition though of the fact that those awnings that are being added on the 11 Mile side are made as awnings, not with the open hole as we discussed earlier. And I don't know if how that gets incorporated into this discussion. I think that was agreed that that's feasible. And I guess I'm inclined to agree. The 36 inches versus the 56 inches, does that mean that the corner sign is also being redone, or is it just being reskinned? I guess I need clarification on that.
It's just being reskinned.
Oh, so maybe is just simply 56 inches. Okay. So,
Yeah.
so my point is whatever's being built new, if it is an awning feature, I would like it to please include the coverage, as we said. And I don't know if that can be incorporated into the motion or not, but I think it's important to take advantage of that situation.
So we have a motion on the floor, seconded. I would say if you want that included in the motion, make a motion to amend the existing motion to include that.
Let's hear from Mr. Klooster first.
Yeah, so reskinning the corner sign, providing signage for each tenant, so each concept. I think there's some flexibility in the strictness of the rules, like each restaurant needs its own identity. I think where we get into issues is with the additional awning signs on the north side. I think we've been relatively consistent, especially in the downtown area, that our signage counts are what we mean when we say them in the ordinance. I don't know if it was last month or the month before. I think we had some restaurant concept just a street or two up where we had a similar issue and we were not on board for additional signs. I think for consistency, I can't support the motion because I think that we've been consistent in trying to stick to the ordinance as much as possible. The one caveat being really there's 2 restaurants in one. So the additional sign on the corner doesn't bother me, but the letter F and D does give me cause for concern, and I can't support the motion because of that.
Further discussion here. We, as Commissioner Douglas noted, we have a motion on the table that was seconded. We have had discussion that you just heard. I think that we have to vote on the motion before we would have an amendment, unless I don't, Commissioner Douglas, I'd have to go check the rules, but I don't think Ms. Beaky can amend your motion.
Yes, she can.
You can.
Yes, she can make a motion to amend my motion, and we vote on her proposed amendment. And then, you know, that motion either succeeds or fails, and in either case, we then come back and vote on the original motion.
I just have a quick question. Are we able to?
No, we have a motion on the table.
Okay, sorry.
If we have a question, we'll let you know.
No problem.
All right. Well, so the question is there such a motion, or are we going to move forward and vote on the motion that's on the table? Ms. Beaky,
I guess if I'm understanding the procedure correctly, I just want to make a motion to amend that motion that the signs that appear to be awnings on the 11-mile side would be constructed as actual awnings. Can that just be added like that? Yeah, that's what I would like to say.
that's your motion, that the awnings on the north side, and I believe that what the petitioner said, and there may be a question here for the petitioner, is that they would do an insert that would be angled and have a drip edge. In other words, it wouldn't be on the top of it, because that would affect their aesthetic, that it would be an inside and it would be dripping off. It would be a drip edge that would be slightly angled. That's what they were suggesting on the 3 awnings on the north side. That's what I understood.
Yes, and yes, that's what.
So your motion is to amend Commissioner Douglas's motion to add an H that would require that adjustment to the 3 awnings.
Correct. That I guess I add an H that would make those elements actual awnings that have head coverage. That's what I'm saying. Yes.
Okay. Is there a second? Mr. Cantina, you're
Right.
seconding, are you seconding the motion?
I am seconding. I just want to make sure that I can second both the original motion and the
I don't know why
motion to
not.
amend the motion.
Okay, so now we have a motion to amend Commissioner Douglas's motion. Is there any discussion on this issue? Now, the petitioner wanted to say something, but I guess I would ask the petitioner before we vote, is what we said correct? That's what you guys could do, is to put an insert in and make it a functional awning.
Is it on me?
Yeah, one of the two, yes.
No, I think my question was, we're happy to look into that. I don't know I can't speak to how they're constructed is my only concern. I'm happy to accommodate it if it's possible. I just didn't know, like you said, what's in front of you is not that. So I didn't know if we're able to take a vote on what's there now. And obviously I'm happy to talk to the awning company to see if we can retrofit something in. I just didn't know if that had to be required based on what your comments have been.
The motion would be to make it a condition of our variance, granting variance.
Okay.
So that's what it would be.
Okay.
So to answer your question specifically, if the amendment passes, you would be required to put in something that covers or insert and cover it. It would be a requirement.
Okay.
Motion to amend, if the amended motion fails, then you're back to the original.
Okay.
Ms. Beaky.
Again, to Eric's point, because maybe this is maybe to go further to add to what my amendment would be, is that if it's not possible to do those inserts, then I think the word shouldn't be allowed on them, because then they're no longer awnings and they are signs. And to his point, then it becomes a lot of signs on the side. I don't know if that makes it clearer or less clear.
Well, I'm just going by what was on the corner, which is not that, so I think that's where the architects were looking at. I mean, again, I'm happy to do it if it's able to be done. I'm assuming it can be. I just didn't know if it's, if it has to be required or not, but that's obviously, it's up to you guys.
The motion is that it would be a condition. Mr. Armstrong.
Yeah, I guess I don't know if I'm able to prove my point a little bit more on our argument, just that the impact that the signage does on its own on that art piece that is an open air awning, I would hate for it to, if for some reason it wasn't able to get that rain screen in there, I'm assuming we can. I just, it's a little rough getting held to something that we're changing spur of the moment. The signage, the paisleys on the awning, that just as it's hard to to say, yes, that's not a sign for that, it's hard to also not know that we can do exactly what it is you're telling us in this meeting to do. Because we'd hope that it's a stipulation that if possible, we could add it to it.
Well, I guess let me pose a question then to my colleagues. With regard to Eric's comment, again, to me, if it is an awning and it has those words, I think it's in the spirit of other situations in the downtown. It's more okay, but if it's just a sign, to his point, where we've had words and we say we cannot have those signs, like we've suggested to people they can have the words in the window or something to that effect. The thing is, I don't want to be inconsistent with other petitioners, is what I'm saying. So I guess what do other people think about this? I'm not trying to make it more complicated. I'm trying to be generous, but.
Okay, Mr. Mayor has his hand up. He'll make a comment.
Yeah, Ms. Beeke, I do appreciate the effort, and I think you know, in a perfect situation, I think these would, and I think it would be to the incentive of the petitioner to make these awnings. I mean, you have people that are waiting for food. You have people. I mean, the more you can have people, you know, even if it's raining, stop by the window and do a little window shopping into the restaurant and see all the great activity. I think it would be in their incentive. I think what I struggle with a little bit is, you know, making the entire signage, you know, contingent upon it without knowing what they could do as far as possibilities are concerned. I think I do like the idea of maybe the language being, if it is possible to do an insert and it, you know, is approved by building and planning to meet safety regulations and everything. And if it's not physically, mechanically possible, then you know, we move forward with the motion as it is. I just think that, you know, it could come really change everything. You know, that would be, we should just vote straight up and down on the request, as opposed to, you know, creating this other contingency that, you know, could derail stuff for another month or whatever while the petitioner is trying to do their construction. That's all.
Mr. Klooster.
So I think it's very tough for us to say something that includes if possible, because who's now responsible for determining if it's possible? I can tell you 100% you can build a canopy out there that is covered. 100% it's possible. Is it possible with the awning manufacturer and the awning style that they're doing? I think that's where it gets fuzzy. And, you know, if we either say it's a contingency in our approval or it's not, I think it's hard to say if possible.
All right, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, and I respect that point, but, you know, on a number of occasions sitting up here, we've sent stuff back to staff's discretion. Oh, an offense that is, you know, appropriate to staff's discretion. And I think, you know, possible with the contingency that it's, you know, approved by staff to, you know, make it work or make that decision. I trust them. And I think they know what we want. And if it's not possible, because to your point, Mr. Klooster, if it's just these things are just mechanically not sound to handle the water weight or whatever, then, you know, staff can make that determination based on, you know, a quick review. If it is possible and staff makes that determination, then we would hold the petitioner's feet to the fire to get it done. But I would leave that, you know, possible, you're right, has a lot of latitude, but that's where I would, you know, I want to say punt to staff, but we've done that on several occasions, you know, to deal with the ambiguity. And staff, we trust.
Is that a hand, Commissioner Douglas, or just you're just shaking your fist at me? All right, well, I think that we need to address this motion to amend, and I would say that I would agree that we either have to tell them that they have to do it as a condition or they don't have to do it. I would say that I think that we have had other things come before this commission recently, things like Henry Ford, who got a lot of extra signs and got a lot of variances. We also had the corner, which we denied the size of a sign on Main Street. We didn't deny them their signs on the other side of the building. So I think the quality of design has something to do with this for me, because really the sign ordinance is impossible to meet. It says that you have to not be able to put a sign that conforms. Well, of course, everybody can put a sign that conforms. I think we might want to think about that because there's no way that you can meet that standard. So the quality design does factor into it for me. And this is, I think, an appropriate design solution. It's ambitious. It's an important location in Royal Oak. They've done a good job up to this point in terms of product. So I would be inclined to vote in favor of Commissioner Douglas's motion with or without Ms. Beaky's amendment myself. Ms. Beaky.
So I think if I'm understanding correctly, the overall preference is that I remove the amendment. Or if it were to stay, I would be inclined to stay with what the mayor said and say, again, given the appearance of awnings and the importance of it to have the protective coverage, if it were possible to put it in, do it, but I wouldn't, but I'll strike the part about removing the words if it's not possible. So, but I'll do either. If people want me to remove the amendment, I'll take it away completely. Otherwise, I'd like to leave it in, and at staff's discretion, if it's feasible, the petitioner will add that element to improve the protection for the people on the sidewalk. But again, I'll do what the team, I'll do what the group wants to do. Is remove the amendment completely or just keep it if possible to put the inserts in.
Can we just vote on the amendment?
We can vote on the amendment. Why don't we do that? Any further discussion on the amendment?
Really?
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I'm just gonna vote it no, just to clear the slate for this. And if there's another amendment, okay. If not, I'm comfortable voting on the original motion.
All right. I will now call for the vote on Ms. Beaky's amendment. I just want to make sure I understand. The amendment is to add a letter H, which says on, and make sure I got this right, Ms. Beaky, on the 3 awnings on 11 Mile, that they should be constructed to be functional awnings. That is your amendment.
Correct.
All right. I will call for the vote. Mayor Fournier.
No.
It's a no. Commissioner Douglas.
No.
Ms. Beaky.
Yes.
Mr. Klooster.
No.
Mr. Gantina.
Yes.
Yours is a yes. All right, well, I'm going to vote no, because I think that the petitioners, just so I make this comment, I think the petitioners have heard this idea, and if they think it's a good idea, I think they'll do it. And if it doesn't work, they won't. So I think they've heard us on this. So I'm voting no, the amendment doesn't pass, and so now we'll go back to Commissioner Douglas's original motion, and I'll call for the vote on that, unless there's any further discussion. Any further discussion on Commissioner Douglas's motion, which is to approve the signed variance with the A through G. Commissioner Douglas.
Yeah, I'll just say up front, obviously I'll support I'll vote for my motion, but if my motion fails, I invite Mr. Klooster to submit an alternate motion containing the elements of the proposed variances that he chooses. And I'll probably support that.
All right. I will call for the vote then on Commissioner Douglas's motion. Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas.
Yes.
Ms. Beaky.
No.
Mr. Klooster.
No.
Mr. Gantina.
Yes.
And I am also yes. So the motion passes to approve the signed variance pursuant to Commissioner Douglas's motion 4-2. All right. So you have your signed variance. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Good luck to you with the new venture there, and we wish you the best.
Appreciate it. Thanks for everything.
Take care, gentlemen.
All right, next order of business. Item number SB 21-0102, a signed variance to install a blade style wall sign for a multi-family building here, right a few feet from where I am at the Roy. Mr. Twing.
Very simply, there are 3 listed variance requests in regards to the proposed sign. It is a sign that is proposed along the east facade of the multifamily project on South Washington. Again, it's being treated as a wall sign that's limited to a 12-inch projection from the building facade. The petitioner is asking to waive an additional 24 inches for it to project out. The second one is there is a provision in the ordinance that indicates that wall signs are perpendicular to the building. It doesn't comply with that provision. And then item C is technically the projections out over the public right of way, which is also prohibited. Those are the items related to the one wall sign.
All right, is the petitioner here? Is that Mr. Ludwig? Could you introduce yourself and explain why you need this variance? Introduce yourself, please. You gotta unmute yourself there. You're still muted there.
There I go. I got it.
All right.
Okay. Hi, everybody. We've been looking for a good place to put a sign on our property for a while. It's basically on the property line on all four sides. So it was a very tight building, as you probably remember from when it went through Planning Commission. We wanted to have a sign that could be seen from traffic going both directions, that could be seen from people walking on the sidewalk, and that would identify the building and help people get there. So we came up with a proposal, which is before you tonight, that is a vertical sign with a face on both sides, similar to others in the city. And I do have some examples that I can show you that are very similar to this sign. And I also have a couple diagram from my architect to show you that the sign that we're proposing does not extend further out from our building than other features, including the awnings that are on our building and the cupola at the top of the building extends out further than our proposed sign. So what we're proposing doesn't stick out any further than anything else. It's bottom line. I'm going to start here with a, I can find it.
You need to share.
I got to find it first. Where is it? Here it is. And now I'm going to share my screen.
Ms. Schwenger, is he able to share a screen or do you have to do something?
Yes, I've just made him a co-host.
Thank you.
It says host disabled participant screen sharing. So if you could undisable.
You are a co-host now, so you should be able to share it with no problem. Maybe you did it right before I. What?
You need to tell them in your own.
Interestingly enough, there are two Albert Ludwig screens.
Yes,
Is that
right.
better?
I am on two different screens here.
Well, I've made you a co-host on both, so you shouldn't have any issues.
Okay, here we go. Great, thank you.
Welcome.
When you're done.
Okay, here is the sketch that was done by our architect. And you can see here that from the side angle, there's the top of the building. If you can see my cursor, I'm going to blow it up a little bit more. There's the parapet from the cupola, sticks out 4 feet. Then we have a sunshade awning below that at 3 feet, another sunshade awning below that at 3 feet. And then as you come down lower, there is our proposed sign right below that second awning, which is sticking out 3 feet. And so it's not any further out than the other projections from the building. And then if I go over to some similar
Excuse
properties.
me, I'm trying to read that. Is that 8 foot 4 inches above the sidewalk? Is that the height of it?
8'6", I believe.
8'6", thank you.
I'll blow it up again to make sure that we got that dimension correctly. Yes, that's 8'6". So if I scroll over here, you can see the sign as it would sit next to our that high window right there. That's our lobby inside the building, and directly next to it on the right is the entrance, the main entrance to the building, right where right where I'm scrolling right now. So we tried to find a place for this sign where it wasn't next to any of the windows. And while it looks like it's next to this window right here of this particular unit, that unit is set back 10 feet. You can't see because this is a 2D rather than a 3D, but where we have the sign out here is at the front elevation, which is 10 feet in front of this unit right here, or 8 feet. So now I'm going to leave this screen unless anybody has any questions on it.
Thank you.
And I'm going to go to this one, which is a similar sign. That is, you could see even larger than ours, much larger, I believe, than what we're proposing. And I believe was done fairly recently, the 855. And then I'm going to leave this one and go to this one, which is another fairly new sign on Main Street, the City Tavern. And then, which is very similar to what we're doing, but again, I believe theirs is larger than what we're proposing. And then I have another one, which is the Hyatt, which you can see is again very similar, but again larger than what we're proposing. So I'll stop sharing my screen now and be available to answer any questions that you might have.
Well, I have a question right off the bat. I cannot tell from what you provided us what the nature of this sign is going to be. Some of the signs you showed us are lit in a certain way, backlit. I think the letters in the Hyatt one are lit. I can't tell from what you gave us what this sign is going to be. Can you?
It would be
describe it?
internally illuminated, like the Hyatt.
Well, I think the Hyatt letters are lit.
Right. Just the letters would be lit.
Okay, so is this going to be a white background with black letters that are the letters are going to be?
We've actually seen it two ways. One was with black with white letters, and one was white with black letters. We hadn't really decided which was going to stand out the best.
Have you included your designer in these discussions? Have you included the architect in these discussions about how to design this?
Yes, we've been working with both the sign company and our architect.
All right, I'm asking the question because the only thing we got here does not look particularly, it didn't look like there was much design put into it compared to the other signs that you showed us. And I'm just concerned that the sign would be commensurate with the design of the building that you have, would be compatible and of the same quality. That's what I'm concerned about.
Oh, by all means, we are very concerned about the quality and the appearance of this building. We're trying to appeal to a certain type of clientele for this building with our small units and lots of common areas that we have in the building. This is for younger people that like to congregate once COVID is over outside of their apartments. And so we're trying to make it hip, chic, and any other words that I'm 68, but I'm for the 28-year-olds. And the sign, we're trying to make it compatible with that look of a chic look, and we've worked very hard to come up with that.
Commissioner Douglas.
So the purpose of signs is wayfinding. And a couple of the examples that you pointed out earlier, I participated in the decision-making on those, and the discussions around those were around the need for people to find that building, that location safely. How does your proposed sign contribute to wayfinding as compared to other places on the building where you might place a sign, for example, on the awning over the door, or at the very top of the center building under the parapet?
We've looked at those alternatives, and I've driven up and down many times. We're not like the Griffin, where we've got a 5-story tower up there that faces multiple directions. If you drive up and down Washington, you can't see this until you're right on top of it, the entrance. That's why we don't want to have a face right on the building. It just doesn't gather visibility. And we want to be people to see it going both northbound and southbound. And we believe that this is the best way to accomplish that. Putting a sign over the entrance isn't going to be seen. It would work for people walking, but it's not going to work for people driving until they're right on top of the building, until they're passing the building. And what we're proposing will let people see it a couple blocks away from both directions, we hope.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for the petitioner? Mr. Cantina.
I have a question regarding so the bottom of the sign, it looks like it's indicated at 8'6" above the sidewalk. I'm concerned that's maybe a little bit low. What did you look at, or is it not feasible to place that at a higher point just so that it is elevated above that sidewalk a little bit more than what's being proposed?
If you look at, I'm sharing the screen again. We have this awning right here, this metal awning, that's pretty close to where the top of the sign is. We could go up a little bit, I think we could probably sneak it up another 6 inches and maybe even cut maybe 4 inches off the bottom of the sign, instead of having it 10 feet, maybe have it 9'8" or something like that. To give you a little bit of additional height off the sidewalk. If you believe that's necessary, we could do that. But this is an awning right there. That's a metal awning. That's right there.
Well, yeah, so at least you've answered the question. I didn't realize that awning was right there, so that I do understand that there is a little bit of an impediment there.
Commissioner Douglas.
Yes, sorry, I missed this the last time. So I am going to, I just wanted to confirm either through the applicant or Mr. Twing that that all of the projection that this building is not built right on the right of way, that it's set back from the right of way, and that any of the projections, the overhangs, on the balconies, the thing over the door, the canopies that we see, that all of those are over the property itself and not hanging out over the public right of way. Am I correct in this?
No, the awnings can hang over the right of way under the building code. So all of those projections are allowed under the building code.
Does the sign project out over the right of way?
Yes, that's one of the variances in front of you.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Other questions for the petitioner? I can only see so many people at the, when.
I have a question, a follow-up question for Tim. This is Ann.
Go ahead.
Or Ms. Beaky. If we allow those different awnings and such to hang over the right of way, why don't we allow signs to hang over the right of way? And again, I'm thinking about wayfinding and the appropriateness both for people walking as well as driving. So I'm just curious why we have that differentiation. If there's something about, well, just why?
Well, I believe it goes back into the difference between the elements that you're talking about in terms of signage. A lot of times signage, one of the reasons we don't allow roof signs or signs that project out over the right of way is then that building owners get in competition with each other, and you can't see my sign because your sign's in front of this one. So if you keep them back on your private property, you're not in the right of way, it's less likely that one sign is now blocking another. That's one reason why you don't allow them to stick out. And there are others. The building code, for whatever reason, says it's okay to have an awning that projects out over.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I think for now, I think the petitioner can stop screen sharing. It's okay, you can always call back if we need it. There we go, now I can see everybody. All right, again, this is directed to the petitioner. What we have in front of us says internally illuminated sign, and it looks like a light box. And I guess again, can you articulate a little more? Is that white background a fully illuminated LED or fluorescent background? What is intended here?
It is intended that the letters be illuminated. It's not a box sign. We're not looking for a box sign. We don't allow box signs on any of our properties.
All right. All right, well, is there any other questions for the petitioner from the commission? Commissioner Douglas.
So what I hear you driving at, Mr. Casada, and I'll ask the petitioner to confirm this, is that we have a picture here at the very end of our document labeled internally illuminated sign 25 square feet. And it shows these signs to be white vertical rectangles with black Helvetica lettering, the Roy. Is that exactly what your sign is going to look like?
Well, I'm not quite sure whether it's going to be white background with black letters or black background with white letters, but it's going to be the letters that are going to be illuminated.
Okay, and it's that exact typeface that you'll be using?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Cantina, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to clarify. So I appreciate you answering those questions about the sign, but just to be clear then, essentially what you represented in the packet is exactly what the sign is going to look like, attachments included. The only potential variable is black background, white letters, or white background, black letters, but the letters will be illuminated. The size and placement and attachment method, everything will be identical to what's in the packet. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Ms. Vicky, was that a hand or you're muted there?
I want to make a comment, not ask a question. So whenever we're ready, just to generally discuss.
We're ready to generally discuss. You're first up.
Okay. So I guess my comment is that I think the sign seems appropriate in scale to the building, and I appreciate the simplicity of the sign, given the facade of the building having those various awnings and such. And even though it protrudes more than our sign ordinance states, it doesn't protrude more than other things on the building. And so I'm pretty comfortable with these variances as they are stated personally.
I'll make a quick comment myself. A blade sign for this building seems to be a decent solution. I think that it does appear to be a little bit of an afterthought. So I'm a little uncomfortable with that, but I think had it been, if somebody had come to me at the very beginning of this project and said, we're gonna put a blade sign up, I probably would have not have thought twice about it. It's probably a good solution, but I think around the corner where the 855 is, the building is has a little funky feel to it, and it's got a sort of a funky sign there to it. I think they did a good job to integrate the look of the sign into the building, and I just want the same sort of approach for the Roy here, where the sign is complementary with the rest of the building structure. Commissioner Douglas.
Yes, I appreciate the case that the applicant made for wayfinding. Often we hear businesses say, well, you know, it's for marketing purposes. And we always have to remind them that signage is not a marketing tool, it's a wayfinding tool. And I think his observation that guests, I mean, obviously the people who live there know where they're going, but they're going to have visitors. And the value of them coming north or south and being able to see the sign, I think contributes to traffic safety and visitor clarity. I agree with Commissioner Beakey's comment that the sign does not project out any more than any other feature on the building. And I'm not concerned about the possible consequences of an adjacent building putting up a sign that interferes with this one because they're so far apart. So I am going to move approval of the items A, B, and C in this requested variance. And I'll wait for Mr. Klooster to tell me I'm wrong.
Is there support for the motion?
I support.
Support from Ms. Beakey. Mr. Klooster, are you ready?
I don't think you're wrong. I think it's an appropriate solution for this property. I do have concerns about precedent and like, oh, well, you did it here and now everyone wants a blade sign. I think we do want to encourage lot line development in what's not necessarily our strictly downtown area, but I'd say for most people, it's still downtown. In those situations, I think it can be harder to do things that are not blade signs. So I support the variance in this particular instance.
Other commentary? Commissioner Douglas.
Yes, sorry, I want to add parenthetically here that the other three examples that the petitioner gave were all planned unit developments and pretty big projects. And often you will see that signage becomes an element in a much larger package of negotiations. So to say, well, they got a blade sign and we didn't, there are all sorts of other considerations that might have affected the decision to allow that sign.
Yeah, thank you. You also could have thrown the coffee cup in there as an example, but any other comments from the commission? All right, so I'm going to call for the vote. This is Commissioner Douglas's motion to approve the sign variance to install a blade sign with the, did you say there's 3 contingencies? With the state of contingencies, that's what.
3 variances. You had 3 variances.
3 variances, yes.
The only contingency that I heard was that the letters will be the only element that's illuminated.
That's what I heard. All right, I'll call for the vote. Mayor Fournier.
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas.
Yes.
Ms. Beakey.
Yes.
Mr. Klooster,
Yes.
Mr. Grantina,
Yes.
and I'm also a yes. So the variance is approved. Congratulations. It looks like you're getting to the end there. I see some lights on in the inside, and we look forward to your project coming online to the public and having a little more activity down here on my end of town.
Thank you very much. It's been tough building this through COVID, and between getting materials and getting the people there. And so we're a little bit behind schedule, but we're charging ahead.
Very good. Congratulations. Good luck to you.
Thank
Good luck,
you.
Mr. Lovett.
Good luck.
Thanks.
All right. Next order of business is the Planning Commission Annual Report for 2020. I'm going to ask Mr. Twing to give us a little synopsis of that.
Well, it's just an informational item. There's no action required. It's a summary of the Planning Commission's items that you've seen in front of you. It's broken down in a variety of fashions between number of special land uses, public hearings, site plans, and then by type. And there's a couple of charts in there that visually provide that for you. And then there at the end, there's a complete list of all the items with some detail. So it's an informational item that we provide every year, every calendar year for the Planning Commission's information.
All right. And just for my information, this pie chart on page 1, this is the land use of projects reviewed by the Planning Commission or by the Planning Department? By the
Planning Commission.
Oh, just us then.
Yep.
All right. Interesting. Okay. There's another item here. There's administrative site plan approvals. Is that part of the same report?
It's not part of the same report because the other report is all the items that come before the Planning Commission. This is an item that provides you with a list of projects that the Planning Division has administratively approved. In this particular case, from October through December 23rd. And it simply lists the date, the location, the business type, and a brief description of what was blessed. Some of these items have been in front of the Planning Commission and got site plan approval, and now they're submitting for building permits, and so we've approved those. Others are simply internal renovations or small additions that we've approved because they've been in compliance with site plan and zoning ordinance provisions. So,
all right.
Info.
Very good. Are there any questions for Mr. Twing about either one of these reports? Ms. Beakey.
Hey, I have a couple of quick questions. I do appreciate seeing the report, and it's interesting to see the summary. On this, you mentioned the 6-year capital improvement plan, and I've been on the commission now for 2 years, the Planning Commission, and we get the kind of the capital improvement summary. Is it anticipated this year that we'll have any discussions ahead of time where we might have some influence over the capital improvement plan, or is it going to be like past years? Because the reason I ask is because I see sometimes like things on street improvements or some of these other kinds of things that maybe could become more consistent with some of our goals of walkability or street safety. And is there going to be more discussion or what that procedure would be this year?
Well, you will see the capital improvements plan. You'll actually have to hold a public hearing on the capital improvements plan. You've done that every year. The finance department, the finance director actually compiles it based on input from all the departments. The Department of Public Services, engineering are probably the two biggest ones that submit large capital projects. You'll see some that are funded by block grant but are submitted through Parks and Rec. But you will see the capital improvements program and you'll actually hold a public hearing on it.
Right. I'm asking whether we have input prior to it being prepared or in the process of being prepared rather than just the public hearing, or our role is only the public hearing portion.
Well, your role would be to evaluate what's in that document when you see it.
Okay, okay, thank you. And then the other question I had is, you suggested that it's finally time for us to work on our master plan in 2022, and I'm just wondering if there might be something in 2021 that we should be doing to get ready for that as a planning commission.
The 5-year review is up in 2022. The last, you do it every 5 years as far as a review of it. And whether you decide to undertake a total master plan review or make revisions to it, generally you'll do in that window of that 5 years. I don't know that there's anything other than the directives you've already given staff in terms of provisions and things to look at and study that I would say that we need to dive into, because I think a lot of the revisions to any revisions of the master plan, you're either going to have public engagement on, or you'll have input from the public. So I think you would do it then.
So the planning commission, we can recommend we can decide to work on the master plan.
You can decide to work on it whenever you feel it's appropriate or circumstances have changed. If it requires outside assistance, the commission will have to fund it, and they would have to approve a budget for it. If we were to rewrite the whole plan or want to do that, we couldn't do it with staff that we have within the city. We'd have to hire a consultant. The last time we did major revisions in 2012 or whatever it was, roughly, all of the revisions were written by outside consultants or agencies that had funding to address specific issues. The non-motorized plan, the Woodward Avenue action, and some of the stuff on Woodward, the TOD stuff, were all written as part of bigger projects funded by outside entities.
Thanks very much.
Yep.
Commissioner Douglas.
I will be making a case. The City Commission will be doing its strategic planning for the year on January 30th. And I will be making a very strong case then for a complete new master plan and not just a 5-year, looks okay to me, rubber stamp review. The master plan we're working from now, aside from the chunks, the non-motorized and the Woodward plan that were put in 2012, the body of that plan is 21 years old. It's a generation old. And that generation has seen significant change here in Royal Oak and in the world, and in the factors that affect land use planning, from sustainability issues, climate issues, transportation issues. I mean, what is COVID going to do to affect land use, particularly commercial land uses? There is so much that to consider that, and we have, I think, demand, I mean, high interest in people here in Royal Oak to participate, to lend their voice into that decision making, and I think that's essential. So I am going to be making a strong push for a new master plan, and I invite all of the planning commissioners, if you agree, to add your voice to my views.
Thank you. Other comments on the reports or the future of the master plan or anything else?
I have 2 little items I'll bring up just to update the Planning Commission on the items that you had jointly with the Zoning Board of Appeals. I think it's our intent to bring a few of those to you at your February meeting to get some further direction or clarification. Out of the 8 items that you discussed, there are 4 that staff is working on. The others, the Planning Commission indicated previously that they should either be part of the master plan discussion in the future, or there wasn't any need to address them at this particular time. But briefly touch on those for what you'll be seeing. The first one obviously was dealing with lot sizes, dimensions, and off-street parking for multifamily. And you wanted us to do some community survey engagement type stuff. We are working with the communication specialist that works for the city as far as putting that survey together. If we can get the survey items together and take her time, what we would bring to you is kind of an outline of the process that we're thinking of using, and potentially the survey questions to get the Planning Commission's concurrence that it's addressing the topics that you want us to address. So that's kind of the intent on that item number one. The standard one family large lot residential zoning district. You may recall that there was discussion about the 3,500 square foot limitation on homes in that large lot districts that are in town. And we have mapped all those. We've reviewed the records, basically out of about 412 parcels that are in the large lot. 34 of them have homes that are over 3,500 square feet. So we'll bring you that map and talk to you about what, if anything, you want us to do in regards to those provisions. The third item, staff's taken care of. We are requiring written submissions for the Zoning Board of Appeals in terms of petitioners indicating their hardships and things. That's just a matter of getting that info from the petitioners. The other one that you will see in February is in regards to front yards and fence heights. There's two different ordinances there, but staff's put together some illustrations that depict how it's applied, what the issues are, and we'll give you some photos of examples that out there, and we'll be asking you to tell us what you want to do with either the front yard requirements in the zoning ordinance and or potentially the fence ordinance, really, which isn't really part of the zoning ordinance or the Planning Commission, other than the appeals go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. But since you may have discussion of it, we'll bring it here as well. So I just wanted to update you that those things are all moving forward. It's a pretty light February agenda. I'm not sure we have any site plans or special land uses. We may have a sign variance or something, but other than that, it'll be these items.
Commissioner Douglas.
Mr. Twing, where are we with the multifamily zoning ordinance changes? Are we at a point where we can start to bring that forward for a public hearing?
Well, I thought the Planning Commission's direction, and that was item number one with all those reports, is you wanted us to do a survey and community engagement to find out how the community felt about those provisions. So we've presented, I think, 3 or 4 times some language, but I think the last action from the Planning Commission was to do some outreach. And so that's why we were talking to the communication specialist about how to go about that.
I'm sorry, I thought the lot size density discussion, that you mentioned earlier, is that what you were talking about earlier, was the multifamily?
Yes, that's where it relates to the parking for multifamily, the lot size, density requirements, all the other standards for multifamily. The first item in that joint meeting, we've drafted a lot of language that the Planning Commission has seen previously. And I think the discussion or direction from the commission was to do some outreach.
Okay.
Found out what the community thought about it.
Okay, yeah, when you mentioned that, I wasn't connecting what you described with the multifamily zoning ordinance. Okay,
Sorry.
all right, thanks. Yeah, that answers my question.
Ms. Beaky.
Related to the issue on the multifamily, do we have a report or any kind of study that looks retroactively at kind of the the impact in the occupancy level and such on like, or the impact of the PUDs and overall housing stock, kind of an assessment of what the impact has been about putting those in place as far as our overall quantity of housing. Because we keep saying we don't have affordable housing, this kind of thing, and I'm wondering how we've studied that besides doing that count in that list that we had previously. And again, maybe we can save this discussion till you bring back the thing about the citizens, but I'm just wondering if there's already a report on what the impact has been on the city. How many, because we give permissions for the PUDs, but then you say sometimes they don't get built, but we know many have, because it's a change. Anyway, that's my question. We do have a report on it generally, the general impact?
Well, you do have, I don't know that the reports that we've generated, that staff's generated would address your question. We've done the list of where projects are, we've looked back at prior existing multifamily residential projects as part of that review. The one thing you in particular, Commissioner Beakey, may have not have seen was the target market analysis that we did several years ago that may more address your question, that we can share with you as well. But I don't think.
No, I have read that. Sorry, that one I have seen. I guess I'm thinking it's sort of like a report to budget or a report on the outcome. Because when it comes to affordability, it's like, how many units do we have? Are they all occupied? Are they affordable for our residents? That kind of analysis, which I know is a complicated housing study. And I'm just wondering if, since we have built a fair amount and we do have older house stock that is in that category, I'm just wondering if there's an assessment of what we need versus what people are demanding that is something that.
I'm going to say that's going to take more time and resources than we have on staff. If the Planning Commission feels that that's necessary, that may be part of the master plan discussion, and it may be something that the City Commission would have to fund with an outside consultant to review. I don't believe, given that staff's going to be able to generate that report for you.
Okay. And the last thing I want to say is thanks very much for sharing that study by the RTA. And it was interesting to read. And I wanted to mention also to the commissioners that Ferndale is updating its mobility plan, and they are requesting to narrow Woodward in their corridor. And I think as we look at our mobility and we think about the businesses along Woodward, which we've talked about a lot, that they have a lot of struggle, that narrowing of Woodward where you would add a bike lane, which then buffers the sidewalk and adds a lot of, would change that corridor, that we might want to look at Ferndale's mobility plan and get some understanding based on the studies that they have already paid for. That might be useful to us as we think through how to improve things for our businesses along Woodward.
Commissioner Douglas.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. The reason Ferndale and Pleasant Ridge are working on that now is because their stretch of Woodward is going to be repaved in 2022. So this is their opportunity to work with MDOT to do that. But our city manager and our engineering department are aware of the work that Ferndale is doing, and they do correspond with Ferndale. So I absolutely share your interest in doing that sort of thing in our stretch of Woodward when the opportunity arises.
Very good. Any other comments? All right, I don't see any more comments on these reports. The last thing on our agenda, it's not really an agenda item, maybe it is. There's the Road Commissioner of Oakland County Chairman's report that's in our packet. I don't know if there's any comments, questions, or instruction on that. Is a update report. All right, seeing no comments, I will pass that. And now I will ask if there's any other business anybody wants to raise at this point in time, since the agenda has been exhausted.
And us as well.
All right, seeing none, I'm going to ask if there's a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
All right, we have a voice vote on the motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Yeah.
All right. Motion carried. We're adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. Stay safe and we'll see you in February.
Have a good night, guys.
Everybody, Happy New Year, everybody.
Bye.